Hi, everybody. This is Al Spath, Positive Poker Insiders. I'm here with Jonathan Little. We're having a little technical difficulty this morning. It's really on my part. I appreciate the patience of Jonathan. He's in New York, down in Manhattan. He's at his wife's office. He's having some construction done on his apartment. Is that
Correct.
right?
We just bought an apartment, and well, I say just, probably about 6 months ago now. And the renovations are taking a lot longer than they were supposed to. We had to move in because our lease on our interim apartment was over. So they're doing work on the apartment we just bought, and I cannot be at home because I have to do a lot of work. So I'm at my wife's office. They were nice enough to give me a space that normally traveling people use. So I'm happy
Where,
to be here.
where did you live before you lived in New York?
Well, I was born in Pensacola, Florida, which is the westernmost part of Florida, very far from Miami. And then after that, when I turned 21, I moved to Las Vegas. I lived there for about 5 years. Then I met my wife and I moved to New York City.
So you did take up residence in Vegas for a number of years, 5 years in total, huh?
Something like that, yeah.
When you got into playing cards, I understand it was with Magic the Gathering. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but of course that's not on this recording. Um, you you fell in love with that game to begin with.
Well, I've always played games as a kid. I got relatively good at chess whenever I was young. And then once I got in sixth grade, I was about 12 years old. One of my friends, the guy who was at my school, who was also my rival in chess, he introduced me to Magic the Gathering. Found that game a lot more engaging, mainly because the game's constantly changing, whereas a game like chess is a fairly stagnant game. It is what it is. In Magic, they constantly add new cards to the pool of cards that you could possibly play from, and that allows for new experiences on a very regular basis. So I like Magic the Gathering. It's a fun game. I still play it today in my spare time, what little spare time I have, and it's great. It's sort of like a mix between chess and poker, but it's a very good game because it teaches you how to think about concealed information, how to deduce what your opponent could have without actually knowing what they have. But you have to make logical deductions. There's also a lot of scene information, a lot of very obvious information, like what your opponent has on the board, kind of like chess. But it's a very good middle ground between the two games, and that is why you see a lot of players who are really good at Magic also be very good at poker.
Are some of the older cards, like baseball cards, worth or have gained in value over the years? This was introduced in '93, I believe.
Right. Magic has a financial aspect to it as well. I actually do a decent amount of, I guess you could call it trading online. You can make a little bit of money doing that. But there is a financial aspect, and some of the oldest cards are quite rare. There may be only a few thousand in existence, and if there are 20,000 people who want these cards, but there's only 3,000 of them around, that drives up the price, and some of them become quite pricey, like thousands of dollars.
Wow. So then you graduated or you moved on at 18 to poker online. Is that
That's generally
that's
right. One
fair?
day when I was playing a Magic tournament, after the Magic tournament, one of the guys decided that he wanted to play poker. So we played a poker game. The bind was 10 cent cards, so effectively a dollar. And sure enough, the guy who set up the game ended up winning. He crushed us all. Then we played again the next week, and he crushed us all again. And I quickly realized that either this guy's cheating or he must be great, or at least better than us. And sure enough, he was just better than us. And so I started studying, and then I started being the person who was winning the games. And that's when I sort of decided to figure out how to actually get very good at it. So I bought all the books I could on poker. I put $50 online. I realized that online you play limit hold'em. No limit hold'em was not really a thing back then.
Hmm.
And so I started with $50 at 25 cent, 50 cent limit and grounded up to 30, 60 no limit before I moved over to sit and goes.
And that's when you didn't have a little bit of bankroll management expertise at that time, and quickly found out that that could go just as fast as you obtained it.
Well, I mean, I was always pretty good with the bankroll. Once I got to sit and goes, I did well for a while. Then I went on a downswing, and I recognized I really wasn't that good at sit and goes, at least not in my opinion. So I decided to move back down to the $10 games. I was playing $200 buy-in games, which was the highest online at the time. And I decided I was going to win about 100 buy-ins at each level. So I did that at the 10s, 20s, 30s, 50s, 100s, then got back to the 200s, and then by then they had 500s and 2000s, and I was plenty bankroll to play those then, and it was a pretty steady climb. Back then, online poker was incredibly profitable, and it was hard to not do well if you were pretty good at the game.
And at 21, you started touring and going to different events. And I understand that the back then the Party Poker Million was your first. Was a WPT event, and I think you got 16,000.
My first trip was to Tunica, Mississippi. Actually, I did not play the WPTs there. They had a WPT and a World Series circuit at casinos that were about 5 minutes away from each other at the same time. So it was fantastic for poker players. And I cashed my first tournament I played, my first live tournament when I was 21, and then I lost everything else there. So I was hoping to play the main event, but I lost all my money, so I went back home. And at this time, I was making pretty good money, something like $20,000 per month at Sit and Goes. So I recognized I was not really a multi-table tournament player, but I was taking my shot like everyone else, and it did not work out. Eventually, I won a Sit and Go. I think it was something like a $2,000 buy-in Sit and Go for a Party Poker Million seat, which was a cruise, effectively. They used to have, maybe they still do, they had a big poker tournament on a cruise boat, and it was a limit hold'em tournament. It was a World Poker Tour event, and I ended up min cashing. I remember having pocket jacks right on the stone bubble, and I think under the gun player raised, and I had something like 5 bets, and I just folded. And I got in the money, got the min cash, which was probably the right play. Mm-hmm. Looking back, it seems incredibly nitty, but it was probably right. And yeah, it's a nice score for 16,000. I mean, to be fair, it's only a min cash, and the buy-in of the tournament was 10,000, but it felt a little bit nice because I got to take my parents on a cruise. I took my mom, my dad, and my brother Garrett, and we got to see a lot of poker pros, well-known players who you see on TV, and it was a good time.
And then the Sunday Million came for 90,000.
Yeah, I think I won the Sunday Million at some point in there. It was, I assume I was 21 when that happened. I don't really know. Maybe, yeah, I must have been 21. So I won the Sunday Million. I was in Texas actually, and I was there staying with some friends. I don't really remember why I was in Texas. Probably just hanging out. A lot of the players who I met online a long time ago playing Sit and Goes, I became friends with, and I still am friends with them today. And we were all in Texas for something. And every Sunday I would always be disciplined to wake up and play Sunday tournaments. At this point, once I turned 21, I started focusing a little bit more on tournaments. So I played Sit and Goes during the week, and then Sundays I played the tournament slate. There were a lot of tournaments on Sundays, kind of like there are today. So I played the Sunday Million. I won it. Actually, I chopped it, I think. But it was kind of funny because we all agreed to wake up and play the Sunday Million, but a few of the guys went out and partied too hard, so they didn't wake up. I believe we swapped something like 5% with the 3 other guys who woke up, and maybe like 6 of the other guys didn't wake up. So instead of swapping 5% 6 ways or 7 ways, I swapped it 3 ways, and it worked out nice.
That's very nice. That's very nice. Now, who was it that inspired you to write your first book? You've written, I think, 9 or 10 books. One bestseller being Excelling at No Limit Hold'em. Were there any other books bestsellers, or was that the main one?
Well, they've all been bestsellers on Amazon at one point or another.
Okay.
Currently, the ones that are selling best are Excelling at No Limit Hold'em, which is a gigantic 500-page book featuring 18 other professional poker players and mindset experts. It's a fantastic book. I learned a lot making it. Yes. Also, Strategies for Beating Small Stakes Poker Tournaments, which is a self-published book I made. It's sort of a shorter book on things you can do to beat small stakes poker tournaments. Also have a small stakes cash game book. Both of those are relatively cheap, which is probably why they sell so well. And then Secrets of Professional Tournament Poker, which is sort of like, people have said it's like the Bible of tournament poker or something like that, where basically I lay out how I play, why I play, how I play, and generally try to teach the reader how to think about the game so that they don't really have to read too many additional books in terms of trying to find like an optimal strategy for today's game. I try to teach the reader how to think for themselves and develop strategies for any scenario that they are in, which is something a lot of older books lack. They just teach a system. And if you learn a system, you're probably going to fail because the games change and evolve.
I just reviewed the book on beating small stakes cash games. It was excellent, and I've recommended it to a lot of the students that I deal with. And for anybody out there that's watching this, you go get it on an ebook basis right now, right? It's available in ebook form?
Yeah, a lot of my books are available on ebook, physical book, and also audiobook. You can actually get the audiobooks, 2 of them for free if you've never signed up for Audible at jonathanlittlepoker.com/free. I try to figure out ways to give away a lot of my stuff for free if people want it, because I recognize that a lot of people who are starting poker, especially small stakes players, don't have a ton of disposable income. So I try to make deals with sites like Audible to where they can give away 2 of my books for free. If you sign up for a 1-month membership, if you don't like their service after that, you can cancel. And if you stick around, that's how I get paid from that. So anyway, you get to try it for free. And give it a try.
Now, everybody that's listening out there, understand this. I signed up with Jonathan Little at his site, maybe it was a year and a half ago. I've received so many free things and so many copies of webinars and poker tips, and you can't believe what you get. That's the free stuff. Then there's all the great stuff that you can subscribe to when he offers big time deals on some of his webinars that are paid for. And you got to sign up. And how do they go about doing that, Jonathan?
You can just go to jonathanlittlepoker.com. Right in the middle of the page, there's a green box, or I think it's a green box. And you just enter your email address and your name. We'll send you a free poker video right there, and also a lot of other tips in your email box. So if you want to learn about poker, it's a very good, easy way to do it.
So let's get back to the original question that I proposed, then I moved it, I shifted it. Who was it that inspired you or talked you into writing that first book?
I wouldn't say anyone really inspired me. At the time, I was making videos for a poker site called Poker Coaching. I'm sorry, called Poker Strategy, which was the largest poker site based in Europe. And one of the other video producers there, Byron Jacobs, happened to be the publisher at D&B Poker, which is the largest poker publishing company in Europe. They also publish chess books as well. So they were a well-known book publisher, and he said that he liked my videos a lot and was wondering if I would be interested in writing a book. And at that time, I'd already written a bunch of just general articles, because every time I saw anyone do anything at the poker table that I thought was horrifically bad, or anytime I was working on something in particular, a spot where I thought I needed help in my game, I would write about it, because I found that writing stuff out helps me get things out of my head into paper, into a form that's manageable. Because a lot of poker concepts are somewhat in depth, and if you just try to hold them all in your mind, you'll go crazy. So I already had probably 150 pages written on just various topics that I thought were interesting, and I thought it'd be easy enough to put together a book. So I made an outline for everything I thought that you needed to know from going from being a marginal amateur poker player to a professional. I wrote it all out. It ended up being about 650 pages or so. And then the publisher said, that's too much. You need to cut it in half. So we cut it in half and made volume 1 and volume 2 of Secrets of Professional Tournament Poker.
I see. Have you ever gone back and said, did I really write that in one of my first books? Did I really believe that? Was there anything that you said that you just had second thoughts on later on, saying, you know what, I didn't have all the facts, or I changed my mind?
Most of the book is actually pretty good. There are some spots where the game has improved a bit, mainly because there are new analytical programs that make analyzing spots easier. So, for example, if I was to go back and change things a little bit, which I will at some point in the future, probably within the next few years, I would talk more about blind defense. I probably did not give enough discussion on how to defend the blinds. You need to be defending the blinds a lot now that people are min raising. At the time, no one was min raising. Everyone was making it 3 big blinds or 3.5 big blinds. So you did not have to defend the blinds very much, but it's probably worth addressing that once the people start min raising or 2.1xing it, you need to defend a lot. So I would change that a little bit. I'd also change some of the short stack strategies. There are now pretty obvious charts on a lot of various short stack situations to where there is no guesswork involved anymore. So you can just memorize the charts and go from there, and you should be fine. And those are really the two things that I would do slightly different. But even then, it's not like they are huge parts of the game. So I'm actually really happy with the book. I go back and reread it every few years just to confirm everything still seems right, and everything still seems right. I mean, people email me every day telling me how they're winning tournaments after buying the book and reading it and studying it, and it works because I teach you to play poker. I don't teach you some default system.
It's always nice to get that feedback. It sure is. When you were working, or are you still working for Float the Turn and Blue Shark Optics?
I own Float the Turn. Float the Turn is a poker training site, and I'm the head coach there. I make poker training videos every month. I believe I put out about 4 per month. And I also do a live webinar each month with the members of Float the Turn, where basically they get online, ask me any and all questions they have. So yes, for that. Blue Shark Optics, I am no longer with them. They changed a few things, and we're no longer together.
Okay, so separate that out. Who do you read if you read about poker when you're not writing about poker or teaching poker or having a webinar or anything? Is there anybody out there that you find has a style or a way to present their materials that you enjoy reading?
The main book I'm currently getting the most out of is by a guy, Will Tipton, who actually wrote for Excelling at No Limit Hold'em. I was so impressed with his books that I had to get him to write for Excelling at No Limit Hold'em. And he basically teaches like really hard how to develop game theory optimal strategies versus very good players. And so I've been studying that. It's certainly not an easy book. It's a very dense book. So I would certainly not recommend it to the vast majority of players. But if you want to beat the best players in the world, it's probably the book for you. It's mainly on Heads Up No Limit Hold'em, and actually in Excelling at No Limit Hold'em, he discusses how to apply it to full ring games and tournaments where payout structures are a little bit different. So that's a pretty cool book. I'm actually playing in the Global Poker League now, and a lot of the formats are heads up. A lot of the games are heads up. So
we voted for you. Our forums voted for you. Every time you put something up about your heads up matches and everything, we got some people to vote for you. So keep it up.
Well, thank you. That was for something a little bit different. That was for the World Poker Tour bracket contest. They ran a bracket contest kind of like March Madness, and each week I got to face off against one of the other WPT champions. And I ended up winning the whole thing thanks to, I guess, you and all of your followers and all of my followers. And we won by a landslide. So that was pretty cool. Basically what I did is I gave away so much free information on my email list. I emailed my email list and said, here's the free content I put out each week. I guess I should mention I have a blog each week where I post free poker content. And then also I have a weekly podcast where I post a hand each week. So anyway, I emailed them and asked them to vote for me, and they all did every day. And we won by a landslide. So that was cool. But the Global Poker League, some of the format is heads up. So I've been studying the chapters in Excelling at No Limit Hold'em by Olivier Bousquet. And there's also a bonus chapter to Excelling at No Limit Hold'em that a lot of people haven't claimed. If you bought Excelling, go to hold'embook.com and click on the claim your bonus chapter, because the bonus chapter by Byron Jacobs, who is the publisher of the book, but he's also a high stakes, hyper turbo heads up sit and go player, a very good one. He wrote a chapter on how to play short stacked No Limit Hold'em, and it is fantastic. So I've been studying those a lot recently, mainly because I'm playing those games.
You collaborate with a lot of people. I've noticed, I believe, last month you did something with Ed Miller.
I did. So each author of Excelling at No Limit Hold'em, there are a lot of them. There's Phil Hellmuth, Mike Sexton, Olivier Bousquet, Ed Miller, Chris Moneymaker, Scott Clements, a lot of very good poker professionals. And most of them agreed to do two webinars with me. So 2 webinars per month, one author per month for the course of about 18 months, because there are 18 authors. So we've been putting on the webinar series in conjunction with Excelling at No Limit Hold'em, and they've been very well received. So I'm happy with that. So far, we have had webinars by, let's see if I can remember this, Jared Tendler, Ed Miller, Chad Holloway, let's see, Trisha Cardner, and I think that's it. I did my webinar as well. We have Alex Fitzgerald next month, so I'm looking forward to that. Alex Fitzgerald is a very good online player, and I'm excited about that one because I learn a lot whenever I talk to the good online kids.
Yeah, I just listened to him the other day in an interview, and he was very enlightening. I have Mike Sexton this Saturday. I'll be pre-recording with Mike. He's going to talk about his new book. I don't know if you've heard about his new book, but it really is not a poker book or a how-to-play poker book. It's more about the experiences and some of the stories and things during his lifetime with the WPT and on the circuit.
Yeah, it's actually published by D&B Publishing. I hooked the two up together, and I'm glad they were able to make something work.
Yeah, I look forward to both reading the book, but also to talking to Mike. He's such an ambassador for the game. I have never heard a person say a bad word about the guy. He's just phenomenal to me. I don't know what the word is to capture his enthusiasm, but he sure does bring it every time he's on camera.
Yeah, he's great.
He's super. He was talking about the shot clock, introducing it recently. What is your opinion of the shot clock, or have you faced it yet?
Yeah, I played with a shot clock tournament at the World Poker Tour Tournament of Champions. It was basically they invited only WPT winners to play a $15,000 buy-in event, and they added a bunch of prize money, so that was nice of them. And I thought it was fine. I had no problem with it. It was a little bit loud, the actual clock was, because whenever you have 30 seconds, and when you get down to 10 seconds, it's basically an iPad. The iPad app that's sitting in the dealer tray, it starts beeping and flashing, and that's kind of annoying. But I was fine with it. I don't have a problem with playing quickly. I mean, whenever I play online, I play 24 tables, no problem, and you have to act in like half a second there. So you have to rely on your study. I mean, if you study away from the table, you should know what to do in most spots. So you have to rely on that a little bit more than just being one of the players who figures out stuff on the fly, because it's much harder to figure out things on the fly very quickly and accurately because you haven't thought about those spots. So it's very good for the players who have a very robust knowledge of the game, and not so good for the players who don't really know what they're doing.
You said 24. I can't let you get I can't let you get by with that without delving into that. You played 24. Of course, you didn't play 24 from the beginning. You've built up to that. Was there a point where you were building up and you went from 10 to 15 or somewhere in the line where you hit a wall for a while and it took a while to do it, and then you could move on? Was there any kind of stumbling blocks? Or
There really were not. I mean, I remember whenever I first started playing poker, playing 4 tables was ridiculous. And you actually had to have a different monitor for each screen. So
Yes.
the best players would have 4 big monitors to have 4 giant poker tables on each one, which is ridiculous. But if you're making so much money from it, you certainly can afford it. And the monitors back then were expensive. They were all like $1,200 each for a 20-inch monitor. So I ended up having 2 monitors back then. Eventually, they made it to where you could resize the tables, and then you could put lots of tables on each monitor. So Party Poker allowed you to play 4 tables at a time, but Party Poker had these things called skins, which were different sites called like Empire Poker and I forget the other ones right now, but there were a few other ones. And so you could have an Empire Poker account, a Party Poker account, etc. And you could load up 4 tables on each of those. So you could have 16 tables like that. So I played 16 tables for the longest time. That was sort of the maximum. Then Party Poker closed. Everyone had to move to Poker Stars. Poker Stars allowed 24, I believe. So you do 24. And that's pretty much where it sits. 24 is a lot. You probably can't handle too much more than that. But some people can. I mean, some people play 60 or something like that, and they're just insane. But you really just have to slowly add 1 at a time. I mean, you go from 1 to 2, you just add 1. Then you go from 2 to 3, you add 1. And if you add 1, it's not that big of a deal. If you're trying to learn to multi-table better, I suggest you move way down in stakes to about the absolute bottom and just practice your multi-tabling. So if you normally play $100 games, move down to $1 games, to where the games are completely irrelevant. Your job is to just see how fast you can go and play well. I mean, I actually do not suggest multi-tabling at a high level, a high volume for most people, because your number one priority as a poker player is to get better at poker. And it's not necessarily to win money immediately. Multi-tabling a lot of tables wins you money immediately, but it does not necessarily make you better at poker. So to get good at poker, you play like 4 tables max or something like that.
Was there a time that you, like when you were 18 and you had a downswing, was there a downswing at all online when you were multi-tabling like this? Did you hit a really rough patch for a while?
Well, I started playing Limit Hold'em with $50 and got up to 30-60, which, very big jump with relative ease. I had studied a lot of Limit Hold'em. That was the main game at the time. So I did well in Limit Hold'em. Then I decided to move to Sit and Goes because the Limit Hold'em games did start getting tougher. And Sit and Goes seemed soft enough. So I was playing the $200 buy-in Sit and Goes, which were the highest at the time. And I actually bought a condominium, and I put a decent amount of the money down. So I left myself with something like a $30,000 or $40,000 bankroll in cash. And I ended up losing something like $20,000 or $30,000 of it, to where I had something like $10,000 left, which is not very much if you're playing $200 games. So I decided I'm going to move down to the $10 games, which was nearly the lowest. And I decided I was going to win 100 buy-ins at each level, which sounds like a lot, but it really wasn't. If you had a 10% ROI, you'll win 1,000, or you'll win 100 buy-ins, I guess, in 1,000 games. And you could play something like 3,000 games per month if you played a lot of tables. So I did that at every level, the 10s, the 20s, the 30s, the 50s, the 100s, then got back to the 200s. And by then they had $500 games and $2,000 games, and I stuck around up there. So I put in the time, decided to get really good at it, played a lot of volume, and it went well enough.
When you grind or do 24 tables at one time, and you put yourself in a room and isolate yourself and really concentrate on it, how long is a session?
Depends on how you want to do it. If you're playing tournaments, a session is just all day. If you're playing something like cash games, you can make sessions pretty short, where you're taking breaks pretty often. I definitely suggest taking breaks pretty often, where you get up, walk around, go outside, do something different. There's really no need to do marathon sessions of something like cash games or Sit and Goes, because those games, unless your game is not going to be around tomorrow. So say you're playing really high stakes and the game's great immediately, but may not be good tomorrow, then maybe you do want to play marathon sessions. But if you're playing small and medium stakes, not taking breaks is just ridiculous. You want to take care of yourself and make sure you're always thinking, well, the game will be there tomorrow. I mean, you see people in live poker do this all the time, where they will go sit down to play a game like 510 No Limit, which runs all the time in a place like Vegas, and they'll play 40-hour sessions. And why not just take a nap in between? I mean, the game will be there tomorrow, so there's no risk of the game dying, and you don't do yourself any favors by playing marathon sessions.
Is there anything in poker that you would change, either live or online at this point?
Well, I like the games to be softer. I mean, there are a lot of I don't know. I haven't really thought about that question. So I think, I mean, I'm happy with the way things are. I don't really get annoyed at much. You recognize that things are not necessarily going to be exactly as you want them, and that's okay. So it's all right. I mean, for example, every time you go to the World Series, people complain about everything. They complain about the structure, about the dealers, about the floor people, about the cold temperature. And that's just part of the game. And you have to realize that is okay.
Are you playing in this year's World Series? If and how many events?
I actually haven't looked at my exact schedule. I'm thinking, since I did just buy an apartment in Manhattan, I need to make some money. I'm probably going to skip the $1,500 buy-in and lower tournaments, because in those games, you can make something like $50 per hour if you're very good, and the variance is through the roof. So I would rather skip those, play the larger buy-in tournaments where you can have a higher hourly rates, and also there's lower variance because they have fewer people. So I'm probably going to be playing the 2500s and bigger, the No Limit Hold'em, PLO, and Limit Hold'em games. Those are the ones that I feel like I'm very good at. And during the other tournaments, the 1500s and lower, I'll probably play cash games at Bellagio or Aria.
Is PLO your favorite discipline?
No, I don't know. I don't really care. I mean, really, I'm not someone who really focuses on like pure enjoyment. I mean, I kind of enjoy all of it. And as long as there is some form of mix, I think it's fine. I definitely like playing PLO online way more than No Limit Hold'em, mainly because No Limit Hold'em at the high levels is nearly unbeatable at this point, but at PLO it still is somewhat beatable. So I do prefer PLO online to No Limit Hold'em, at least in the cash game format.
We had Rolf Schlappboom on a couple of weeks ago. Rolf and I worked over at Poker School Online together and everything. And one of the people in the chat mentioned that one of his books kind of ruined PLO, the full ring game online, because he showed the secrets of winning at a 6-max table. Do you remember any of that controversy?
I mean, I remember reading the book. He also wrote for D&B Publishing. Seems like D&B Publishing makes most of the good books.
Yeah.
And he wrote that book way before I was even an author for D&B. And his books are great. I mean, they teach you how to do well in cash games. Just a good, solid book on how to not give away much and how to get it in good. And that's really all you need to do in PLO is sit there, play reasonably enough, and get it in good.
Final question for you today is, there's lots of forums out there. There's Facebook. I know that you also do Share My Pair. And are you streaming as well now?
Yeah, so every Monday I have a free home game. I give away prizes. Actually, the league for this, I guess, half of the year is almost over. I am giving away $1,000 in cash to first place, plus $500 worth of my training products, all of my books in PDF format, and an hour of coaching with me to the winner. Second place gets a similar package, but $500 in cash. So we did a league. It started at the beginning of the year, and it's ending right before the World Series, because ideally the people who take first and second will come out to the World Series, have a face-to-face session with me, and also I can give them the cash in person. That makes things easy. So that's ending soon, but it does run every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. JonathanLowePoker.com/home game has all the information for that. So I stream that on Mondays when I'm available, which is a reasonable amount of the time. And I try to stream my play whenever I go to Europe or the Bahamas or somewhere like that where you can play online, but the internet has been very bad the last few times I went. So it was good enough to play, but it was not good enough to stream. So I tried to stream. It was horrible. The internet quality was horrible, so I gave up on it. But I'm happy to stream whenever I'm playing. Also, people don't like watching 24 tabling. You can't really follow the action so well. So it is what it is. I'm not like a lot of the streamers who play a few tables, because my time when I get to play online is very limited, and I want to make sure I'm maximizing hourly rate when I'm doing it. So anyway, I don't stream a ton of actual play, but I have a free home game every Monday. Also, I just released a poker training program over at pokercoaching.com. There, every month, we're giving out a very in-depth homework question. We're going to be doing a live webinar reviewing that homework question. And also, I put out interactive quizzes. So there's actually an application called Instapoker that I'm part of that has been very successful. And people love the interactiveness of the app. Basically, you're put in the situation that the pro presents, and then the pro analyzes why you should make each play. And it will tell you if your plays are great, if your plays are not so good. And if you play a few of the hands, you'll likely see that you mess up a lot on the turn or mess up a lot on the river. And that will help you know what to work on. It'll also analyze why you are doing the wrong play, because I explain all the options and why some are better than others. So anyway, I'm excited about that. We just launched that last month, and I'm going to be continuously adding hands and homework questions and webinars in the future. So I'm excited about that.
And Share My Pair with Steve Miller and his group. Do you post all those hands up there, or do you just supply them to somebody else and they post them for you?
Oh, no, I post them. The application just got an overhaul, actually. It's much easier to post hands on now, but you can post a hand in something like 30 seconds if you're very diligent and fast at it. And I post a ton of hands. Anytime I see a fun hand at the poker table, I just put it on Share My Pair, and it works. I mean, people will leave comments. I'll reply to the comments, and people can also tag me in their hands. They can put me in the comments, and I believe it sends me a notification about that. Or you can even send me the hand on Twitter, and I'm happy to look at it.
Yeah, I've noticed he's got them separated into everybody that wants to put their own Share My Pair hands up there. They can do that, but then they have a list of pros, as yourself, Phil Helmuth, and several other people that put up hands on a regular basis too.
Right. I mean, they have. I think it's called the Card Shark section, where it's players who have had good results, who are well-known pros, and you can watch their hands and review their hands. Faraz Jaka actually posts hands on there, and he is a very good loose aggressive player. So I think there's a lot to learn from his hands in particular.
How do you let things roll off your back when you see something in a forum or a major forum, when you got one guy that's got a little burr under his saddle and he wants to insinuate, or he wants to take it out on you? Is it like a restaurant, you serve 100 meals and you get one person that had a bad server on a bad day and got a bad meal, and they're trying to ruin the whole restaurant over it? Do you let it roll off your back, or do you have to do some kind of defending on that position?
I don't really feel a need to defend myself in a lot of scenarios whenever people are attacking me in likely ridiculous ways, mainly because I have great results and I have a lot of students who have studied what I do, and they are very successful now. So I recognize that what I do is beneficial and useful. You're going to find that if everyone likes you, you're probably not doing something right. If everyone hates you, you're probably not doing something right. But I've had a lot of, I guess you could call it, hate mail coming in, mainly because I've made the middle stakes games much tougher. And I recognize that, but it doesn't really affect me because I'm at the high stakes games. A lot of middle stakes pros who used to be high stakes pros they become disgruntled with the game and disgruntled with life, because they used to be winning poker players, winning a bunch of money. They stopped studying, they stopped improving. And now the amateur players who they used to beat have studied and have worked hard, or quit. So they're either getting better or they're quitting. And that in turn makes the middle stakes games a little bit tougher. And the players who don't study and work hard are pissed. And I'm a pretty good person to be pissed at, because I have helped the amateur players get better, those who do want to study and want to learn. Well, I mean, you'll just recognize that a lot of people have their own interest in mind to some extent, and people get unhappy for various reasons, and you can't worry about that.
I know. I just hate the false allegations that sometimes go out there about players. It's hard to defend sometimes when people just carry on about something. They make up the facts as they go, kind of like Fox News, I guess. It's terrible, and it's out there, sometimes, and we all have to deal with those kind of things. But listen, I appreciate the time. We had to do this a couple of times this morning because of a weather problem here in Maryland. Jonathan Little gives a lot of his time to a lot of people. He supplies a lot of product online, a lot of free information. You can improve your game by following this individual. He's, again, the owner at Float the Turn. He's online. He's got a presence just everywhere. Just look up his name. Just Google his name and get in touch with him. If you want to excel at your game, you've got to get in touch with a coach like this, somebody that has the passion. Sure, he's got a financial reason to do it. We all do those kind of things. You got to get paid for your time. But listen, there's nobody else out there, and you can take it from me. There's nobody else out there that supplies the content that this gentleman does right here. And my hat's off to him. I tip my hat to him, and I thank you for the time this morning, Jonathan. And I will get this out on social media this Sunday, and I'll get you your copy as well.
Well, thanks for having me. And the best place for people to get in touch with me is on Twitter at Jonathan Little, just my name. And also just check out jonathanlittlepoker.com. That's where I post most of my free stuff. And I think if you have a desire to learn the game, that's a very good place to start studying and start taking your game to the next level.
Well, thank you so very much. Get back to whatever you're got planned in New York City today. I hate to say this, but have one of that Italian breads or Italian food, or have something really good, because I'm just jonesing for it down here in Maryland.
It's unfortunate because I'm actually on a 1 month eat perfectly strategy, mainly because you want to be in good shape for the World Series. So no unhealthy food for me. I wish I could have it, but we're not going to do it. So I'm being a good boy for the next month.
Okay, well, we'll follow you in the World Series, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you again for all your time.
Thanks for having me.
All the best.